Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you watched the previous two videos about making patterns for a t-shirt and for leggings. Today we're going to finish that series by putting them together in one video. Also, we're going to make a little bit of a variation in the t-shirt pattern, and just to give you some ideas for some fun things that you could do besides just a plain t-shirt. So let's get started. All right, here are the pieces that we cut out. The two t-shirts for the one with the variation and the plain t-shirt. And here are the leggings. The two leg pieces are actually cut out together, and the top band. Let's take the pants first. I'm going to take them to the sewing machine. Today I'm going to be using a serger. If you do not have a serger, just use a straight stitch and then a zigzag stitch, or I will show you a couple of other stitches that may work better than just a straight and a zigzag, and it will cut back on time. So let's go over to the machine. Here I have my Kenmore. It's quite an old machine, but it has been the most sturdy of all my machines. I actually run them to the ground because I sew so much, but this one has been really steady. So this one, if you have an old machine, it will have like basic stitches. So that's why I wanted to show you on both machines. So for a zigzag, you would just put it on a C for a zigzag, which for knit, you do need something that will stretch. Otherwise it will pop the seams. A straight seam will pop. Another one you could do would be E. If you can see on here, it has a little bit of a zigzag, but it's also straight, so that when you're looking at the wrong side of the fabric on the seam, on the outside, it won't show like spotty, where a zigzag seam would show little lines. What the zigzag is, you could also use F, of course, or down here if you have any of these are all straight on the outside. If you can see right here, it would be a straight stitch, but it has stretch. So any of these are called stretch seam stitches. So any of these are good, but what you need to do is test it first. If you're uncomfortable testing it to see what will show through on the outside of the fabric of the garment that you make, then just sew a test strip of each of these and figure out which one you like. This is also an older machine. I've had it probably 8 years, but it's a lot newer. It has the automatic display, the LED display. For this one, it's the same idea, to push a little bit different straight but zigzag. This is an excellent one because it has the stretch, and up here it will show you. Again, if you want to try sewing just a test strip with 2 scrap pieces of fabric to see what it looks like on the outside of the garment, that's the best way to go to see which will work best on your knit. The stitch length doesn't need to be super small. Make sure that it's a decent length in case you have to unpick it, because sadly that does happen. I'm just going to show you really quickly. I'm going to do a G, which has a bit of a stretch. I'll show you what it looks like on the outside. This is a velour, so it doesn't have great light. Let's turn on this light and so you can see better. If I pull it just a little bit, you can't really see where the seams are. So this is actually very, very good for stretch, but also has some give this way, so it's not going to pop a seam. For our pants project, let's start with the waistband. We're going to take the 2 pieces. If you cut 4 pieces, that's just fine. Just sew the middle seam so that it's 2 pieces. Now with the serger, you never use pins. With a sewing machine, you usually use pins. Today I'm not going to use pins because I'm going to be sewing with my serger. If you can get a serger, you can look online. Sometimes they sell them for as little as $200, and those are usually really pretty acceptable to use, especially just for family sewing. So we're going to take our seam waistband, and this would be the part where it joins with the fabric of the pants. This is actually the waist, so we're going to fold it in half again. You're going to put the two sides together, right sides together, and sew this seam on both sides to create the waistband. Both sides sewn. With the serger, it doesn't keep the crisp angle, but that's okay. We're going to turn it right sides out. And this is going to be the waistband of the leggings. I'm going to set this aside. The next thing we're going to do is the pant leggings. Now I cut these out together, so I need to open it up because we're going to sew right sides together down the inseam of both pant legs. If you will recall, the inseam is the inside of the leg. So here's our inseam, and the outer seam is just the fold. So there's just literally 4 seams to put these leggings together. So now I'm just going to sew the inseam on both pant legs. A major difference between sergers is it not only cuts, it not only sews, it cuts it. So here's the extra pieces that it trims off of the seam as it sews. So we're just going to discard that. But another thing, you need to leave a tail. This is a small tail. I always just kind of pull on it till it knots itself, and then you won't have as much of a string later on your clothes to deal with. So I'm just going to kind of pull on those, make it knot, and then I'm going to leave the rest long. This is long, but I'm going to trim it back a little bit because I don't want it to get knotted later when I'm sewing the other seams. Now we have 2 pant legs, and we're going to turn one inside, right side out, leave one inside out. I'm not going to pull the whole pant leg out, but what I do want to expose is this crotch seam. I'm going to insert this pant leg into the other so we have them sandwiched. And then with one inside the other, I'm going to match up the front and back middle seams of our leggings. The thing you want to keep in mind is you want this center seam to match up. So I'm going to sew this really quickly, and it sews like a horseshoe in a semicircle. It's a quick and easy sew. All right, with this seam sewn, I'm going to take the pant legs out so that they are separated. Now we've got all 3 seams ready to go. To complete the leggings, besides the hem, which I'm going to let you do the hem, I'll do a quick rundown of the hem, but the top is already going to be finished, and that's what I love about this pattern. I'm going to match up these seams because they do tend to shift just a little, and then I'm going to put it inside with all of the raw edges on the outside. Now this is not exactly in the middle, so we're going to just shift it because when you sew it, you do pull just a little. The side seams and the front and back seams should line up. The side seams, this will be the hip, and the back and the front. Then I'm going to pick one of these seams. I'm going to actually start on this side seam and sew all 3 layers all the way around. the outside, the top looks exactly the same as on the inside. Actually, I won't turn it inside out yet, or right side out yet. I'm going to do just a quick hem of these, and then these pants will be finished. For the outside, we just need a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to leave the stitch length at 3 because it doesn't need to be a really small stitch. Done. If you invest 1 hour of your time and a couple of yards of knit fabric, it really is easy to make your own leggings, and you can make them any color and style that you want because they're so comfortable to wear just about every day. Our t-shirts are next. So these are cut out with the pattern pieces that we made in the previous video, and I'm not steaming them because they're t-shirts and I don't actually enjoy ironing. So these are wrinkly, and that's totally fine. I've cut out 2 just to show you some variations. This one has just a cap sleeve, very basic cap sleeve. This one has a little bit longer sleeve, but as you can see, I cut out 2 more pieces here. This is probably 2 inches, a little bit more than 2 inch. Yeah, about 2.5 inch neckline. This one I'm going to put on the neck. And then I have this piece that I already cut out. And I'm going to use this, which is about 4.5 inches. I'm going to use as an armband for the bottom of this sleeve. And the fun thing about making your own shirts is you can add variations such as these, just to make them a little bit different so that you don't have a bunch of the same t-shirts and you use the same pattern, so your life is simplified. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how to sew it together quickly on this one, and then I'll show you how to apply these extra embellishments on this one. For our t-shirt, we're going to take the back piece and align with the front piece. Sometimes, especially with this kind of fabric, the inside and the outside, or the right side and the wrong side, depending on if you're looking at a pattern, it will call it the wrong side of the fabric or the right side of the fabric. The right side would be the outside, obviously. So we're going to put the outside of the fabric together. And on this one, it's difficult to tell, but if you look really, really closely, you can see the ribs. This is a knit, obviously, for a t-shirt. It needs to stretch. So the inside would be a little bit softer looking, but the outside you can see the ribs, and you want the lines to go up and down. I'm going to align our 2 shoulder seams. And I do not like pinning knit, but it also sticks together pretty well. As you can see, it's kind of like staying together. I'm going to use the sewing machine for this t-shirt because I want you to see that it is totally doable, and I want all of you to feel empowered to do what you've got. Use what you've got. So I'm going to use a stretch stitch, which is G. You can also use this stitch for many other things, but I'm going to use it for my knit. If you only have a machine that has straight and zigzags, use the zigzag first. And I'm going to put the stitch length at 3 just because it's not too small. Using the presser foot as the edge, I'm just going to do a seam across the top of the shoulders. Again, back stitching always. Okay, Now I'm going to open it up. So here's the neck hole, and this is the arm. It looks like a U on both sides. I'm just going to lay that on my lap and get the right side of my I didn't know those are still attached. The right side of my sleeve. And I'm going to match up this side seam. This will be the armpit. Is that nice to say armpit? Maybe I shouldn't say armpit. We're going to match up the outer side of this sleeve with the outer side of the armhole. Now these I'm just going to pull. I'm going to just pull just a little off that stitch. When I get past the halfway point, I get the other corner, and then I just kind of pull them to match because I want all the seams to line up. Okay. Same thing on the other side. I just lay it right side up and get the other. Now this one I always like to double check in a bright light because sometimes it's a little tricky, and I'm going to put the right sides together and just attach the second sleeve. Just for a nicer look, always cut your threads. It's not nice to have threads hanging off garments. Now, if you will notice, you can see a little bit of a pucker. If that bothers you, absolutely go back and just do a straight stitch. But on the straight stitch, you're going to do that. I'll just do a demonstration really quickly of that. You're going to do that on the inside of the seam that we already did. Also, you need to pull it. See how I'm putting a little bit of tension on there? Because when you are done sewing, a straight seam will not pull. But if you're pulling it while you sew, then it does have more give after. So if you'll notice now, it's a much smoother seam. To me, it doesn't really matter on a t-shirt, but if it bothers you, absolutely. Just pull it, stretch it while you're doing a straight stitch. And now we're going to proceed forward with the rest of the t-shirt. Here is the inside. We did the shoulder seams here first, and then we just sewed the sleeves on. The next step is to sew from the end of the sleeve, which in this case it's a cap sleeve, so it's just a tiny, it's like an inch. We're going to start at the end of the sleeve and sew all the way down to the waist seam. So we're going to do that really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and put that back on my stretch. On this seam, I did this on purpose because I want you to see the difference. When I hold it together, it's not perfect. You can see the bottom side just a little bit more on this edge than the sleeve. But I'm going to show you what it looks like on the outside after you sew it. On this seam, as you can see, it wasn't lining up perfectly, but if we turn it on the outside, it lines up great. It's just fine. And that's the beauty of sewing. If your pattern is not 100% lining up, it will look fine on the outside, and do not worry too hard about it. So we have most of it sewn. The last little bit is the hemming. Now I'm going to do a quick hem on these, and then I'm going to show you. We're going to start on the gray shirt that has the variations on the sleeves, and we'll start on that in just a second. The collar of this t-shirt, we're not just going to hem it, we're going to make a collar band. The easiest way to figure that out is make it an inch longer than your neck hole, and then just cut it out. I like mine about 2.5 inches wide, and then just a little bit wider than this is, so that when we put it on, it stretches a little, but it doesn't pucker it in really tight. So that's how I always measure, and I'm just using the same exact fabric, not special fabric, to make the collar. Same thing that we're going to do a little variation on this sleeve. I cut out this 4.25 inch wide, and it's folded. I did it the same width as the edge of this sleeve. Let's go put them on the shirt. We need to sew all of these pieces closed so that it's a continuous loop. So I'm going to do a quick seam on here with right sides together. If you're in a hurry, chain stitching is the way to go. You just keep it all on the same string, and when you're done, just clip them apart. So we're going to clip those apart. Now we've got the neck and the 2 arm bands ready to go. First thing we're going to do is the neck band. You can do a thinner neck band, totally great, but make sure that it's wide enough for you to easily handle. So I'm opening it up into a circle, but then I'm also folding it in half so that it is ready to put on. Now the back seam obviously goes in the center back. And then you sew all 3 of the raw edges together. And when you sew it, I'm going to just sew a little bit in, and then I'm going to show you how to stretch it. Now it's stuck and the needles are down so that it stays, and it will hold it while I adjust this. And I'm going to adjust it just enough that I can figure out how much I'm going to need to sew it. How much, well, I'm going to sew it all, and how much to stretch. So if I hold the front of this exactly opposite of the back seam and the exact opposite in the front, you get quite a good stretch. So I'm going to have to pull it quite a lot so that it holds straight, and it will pull the neck seam in nice and taut. Today I'm going to put a little pin in the front just as a visual reminder of how much to stretch it. While I'm sewing, I need to see all 3 of the layers. So I just check under here and make sure I can see all 3. Now I'm going to remove the pin long before it gets to the blade, otherwise it will actually ding the blade and cause damage, and then you'll always have a nick in the blade, and that's never good. So when you're serging, you never want a pin close to where you're sewing. Now this is the front in the center, and I'm going to just continue to pull it all the way around. Now the neck band is on, and you can see how it puckers just enough so that when you wear the shirt, it will keep it nice and flat against your neck. Now for the sleeves, we're going to use these two armbands for the sleeves. And it's going to do a similar job for the sleeves, and it just makes a little bit of a variation, and so it's fun to have a little bit of a different t-shirt so you don't have all the same. I'm going to fold this one in half and maybe you can see it a little bit better. The seam right here is going to match up, and I'm actually going to offset it just a little bit from the bottom sleeve seam, because there's a lot of bulk there. With 3 seams, it makes a lot of bulk. So I'm actually just offsetting it just enough that there's less bulk while I'm sewing it. And this one I don't need to stretch very much at all, because if you can tell, it's pretty close to the same size. When you align it, make sure that you have all 3 of the outer edges visible, otherwise you might lose one inside, and then you'll have to unpick that part, and that's not fun. Here's the inside, and as you can see, the threads are contrasting, so hopefully you can get a good visual on those. This is the inside of the sleeve that we just sewed the cuff on, and the neckline. The only thing that remains is the hem. I will do that later. I want to show you the outside of both of these shirts. This one has a little bit longer sleeve because of the cuff, and also this is just a little bit longer as well. So just adding a little bit onto your sleeve, it makes quite a difference. The other one, you can see just a small, just a little cap sleeve, and we just hemmed all of the edges, and it doesn't look like the same pattern. If you lay them side by side, they look like different patterns, and that's just by slight variations in how you finish the shirt. I hope that you enjoyed making shirts and pants today. We're going to get a quick snap of my cute model wearing these, and you can see how they fit her a little bit different. Thanks so much.